She was just another passenger in seat 24C, until the engine exploded at 37,000 feet. 200 souls, one crippled Boeing 777, and pilots losing control. Then the F-22 fighters arrived and broke radio silence with one word that changed everything: Phoenix. The legend had been flying coach all along. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The coffee tastes bitter, but Captain Sarah Chin drinks it anyway. She sits in seat 24C of United Flight 447, a Boeing 777 bound from San Francisco to Tokyo. Her laptop rests closed on the tray table. Outside the window, clouds stretch like cotton across the Pacific Ocean, 37,000 feet below. No one on this airplane knows who she is. The man beside her sleeps, mouth slightly open. The woman across the aisle watches a movie. The flight attendants move through the cabin with practiced smiles, offering drinks and snacks. Everything is normal. Everything is routine. Sarah closes her eyes. She thinks about the simulator runs she completed last week at Edwards Air Force Base. 12 hours of testing new flight control systems for the next generation of fighter jets. Classified work. Dangerous work. Work that only 3 pilots in the United States are cleared to perform. Her call sign is Phoenix. She earned it 7 years ago when she recovered an F-35 from a flat spin that should have killed her. The aircraft was damaged. 3 hydraulic systems failed. The computer predicted 0 chance of survival. She landed it anyway. Since then, she has tested aircraft that do not officially exist. She has pushed machines to their absolute limits and brought them back safely every single time. Her file contains 43 pages of commendations. 2 distinguished flying crosses. The Air Force gave her the option to retire last year with full honors. She refused. But today she is just another passenger. She wears jeans and a simple blue shirt. Her military ID stays hidden in her wallet. She wants 2 weeks of vacation in Tokyo. She wants to be normal. The universe has other plans. The explosion happens without warning. One moment, Flight 447 cruises smoothly through clear sky. The next moment, a sound like thunder tears through the cabin. The aircraft lurches violently to the right. Oxygen masks drop from the ceiling. People scream. Sarah's training kicks in instantly. Her eyes scan the cabin, assessing the situation. The airplane is banking hard right, nose dropping. The engines sound wrong. One is screaming too loud, the other has gone silent. She unbuckles her seatbelt and stands up, fighting against the angle of the floor. Passengers grab at their oxygen masks with shaking hands. A child cries somewhere toward the front of the cabin. The flight attendants hold onto seat backs, their faces pale but professional. Sarah moves toward the cockpit. She knows she is not supposed to do this. She knows there are rules, protocols, security measures. But she also knows what that sound meant. They have lost an engine. Probably the right one based on the vibration pattern and the way the aircraft is yawing. And something else is wrong. The flight controls feel sluggish, hesitant. The pilots are fighting for control. She reaches the cockpit door. A flight attendant blocks her path. "Ma'am, please return to your seat." "I'm a military pilot," Sarah says, her voice calm but firm. "I need to speak with the captain right now." The flight attendant hesitates. Sarah can see the fear in her eyes. The airplane shudders again, more violently this time. "Please," Sarah says. "I can help." The flight attendant makes a decision. She picks up the intercom phone and speaks quickly to the cockpit. 10 seconds pass. 20. Then the cockpit door opens. The scene inside is chaos. Captain Mike Brennan sits in the left seat, both hands gripping the yoke. His knuckles are white. Sweat runs down his face. In the right seat, First Officer Jennifer Park works the radio with one hand while trying to help control the aircraft with the other. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," Jennifer says into the headset. "United 447, we have lost our number 2 engine and we are experiencing multiple system failures." Sarah steps inside. "Captain, I'm Sarah Chin, United States Air Force test pilot. I think I can help." Mike looks at her for just 1 second. In that second he makes a calculation. He sees her calm eyes, her steady hands, her military bearing. He makes a decision. "Right engine exploded 2 minutes ago," he says, his voice tight. "We lost hydraulics in systems 1 and 3. Flight controls are barely responding. I can't maintain altitude. We're dropping 300 feet per minute and I can't stop it." Sarah looks at the instruments. The situation is worse than she thought. The primary flight display shows the aircraft in a descending right turn. The engine indicators confirm the right engine is completely dead. Warning lights cover the panel like a Christmas tree. Hydraulics, flight controls, electrical systems. What's your weight? She asks. 260,000 pounds, Mike says. We burned off fuel for 2 hours but we're still heavy. Distance to nearest airport? 600 miles to Honolulu. But I don't think we can make it. I'm losing control. Sarah's mind works through the problem like a computer. She has flown aircraft with worse damage than this. She has recovered jets with complete hydraulic failure, with engines on fire, with flight computers offline. But those were fighter jets, small, agile, designed to take punishment. This is a Boeing 777, carrying 200 people, weighing more than 250,000 pounds. The techniques she knows are classified. Experimental. Dangerous. She makes a decision. Captain, I'm going to talk you through something, she says. It's an alternative flight control method that we use in test situations. It's not in any manual, but it will work. Mike looks at her. How classified? Very. Will it save my passengers? Yes. Then I don't care. Tell me what to do. Sarah pulls out her phone. She opens a calculator app and begins running numbers. Mike and Jennifer watch her, still fighting to keep the aircraft level. Okay, Sarah says. Here's what's happening. You lost the right engine, which means you lost the primary hydraulic pump for systems 1 and 3. You still have system 2, but it's overworked. The flight computer is trying to compensate, but the algorithms aren't designed for this scenario. So what do? Jennifer asks. We bypass the flight computer. We go full manual, but we use differential thrust and controlled aerodynamic pressure to maintain control. Mike shakes his head. I tried varying thrust. It's not enough. You're using it wrong, Sarah says. She moves behind the center console. May I? Mike nods. Sarah reaches forward and takes the thrust levers. This technique was developed for the X-37 program, she says. Unmanned aircraft that need to operate with severely degraded control systems. We discovered that you can create artificial stability by cycling the thrust in precise patterns. She begins moving the left thrust lever in small rhythmic movements. Up 5%. Down 3%. Up 4%. Down 2%. The pattern looks random, but it is not. She is creating pulses of thrust that interact with the aircraft's aerodynamic surfaces in ways the flight computer cannot predict. The aircraft responds. The right wing comes up slightly. The nose stops dropping. What the hell? Mike whispers. The thrust pulses create pressure variations across the wing surface, Sarah explains, her hands never stopping their precise movements. Combined with specific rudder inputs, you can maintain directional control even with asymmetric thrust. But the timing has to be exact. Too fast and you induce oscillation. Too slow and you lose the pressure differential. She demonstrates for 30 seconds. The aircraft stabilizes. The descent rate decreases from 300 feet per minute to 100. Can you do that for 600 miles? Mike asks. No, Sarah says honestly. My arm would give out. But you can learn it. Both of you. For the next 10 minutes, Sarah teaches them the technique. It is difficult. It requires intense concentration. Mike's first attempts create worse oscillations. Jennifer does better. Her hands are steadier, her timing more precise. Good, Sarah says to Jennifer. You have a feel for it. Keep that exact rhythm. Jennifer nods, sweat on her forehead, but her hands stay steady. Sarah looks at the fuel gauges. How much fuel are we carrying? 60,000 pounds, Mike says. That's too much. We need to be lighter for landing. Can we dump fuel? The dump system uses hydraulic pressure. System 2 is barely keeping the flight controls working. If we divert pressure to fuel dump, we might lose control completely. Sarah thinks. What if we burn it? Run the left engine at maximum thrust. Mike considers. That would work, but we'd cover distance faster. We'd reach Honolulu while we're still too heavy. So we fly in circles, Sarah says. We establish a holding pattern 100 miles out from Honolulu. We burn fuel while maintaining altitude. When we're light enough, we land. 100 miles of this? Jennifer asks, her voice strained. She is still cycling the thrust lever, still maintaining the precise rhythm. I'll take over when you need to rest, Sarah says. We'll rotate. We can do this. Mike makes a decision. Okay, let's do it. He picks up the radio. Honolulu Center, United 447. The F-22s. The radar operator at Hickam Air Force Base stares at his screen. United Flight 447 is not flying normally. The aircraft is descending slowly, its flight path showing minor oscillations every few seconds. The transponder indicates multiple system failures. He picks up a phone. "Sir, we have a situation." Within 5 minutes, 2 F-22 Raptors are airborne from Hickam. Their call signs are Viper 1 and Viper 2. They carry full weapons loads not because they expect to use them, but because they were on alert status when the call came. Major David Viper Martinez leads the flight. He has 3,000 hours in the F-22. He has flown combat missions over 3 continents. But escorting a crippled airliner is something new. "Viper flight, proceed to intercept United 447, the controller says. Maintain 1,000 feet separation. Visual identification and assessment." "Viper 1 Roger," David responds. The F-22s accelerate to Mach 1.2. They cover 100 miles in 7 minutes. David slows as they approach the 777's position. "Viper 2 take high cover," he says. "I'm going in for a look." "Two's high." David slides his F-22 underneath the 777, then pulls up alongside, matching speed. He is close enough to see faces in the windows. Passengers stare at him, some taking pictures with their phones. He looks at the right engine. The cowling is torn open, parts of the turbine visible. Hydraulic fluid streams from the wing in a thin mist. The aircraft yaws slightly right, then corrects, then yaws again. The pattern is rhythmic, almost like breathing. "Honolulu Center, Viper 1, David says. I have visual on United 447. Confirm right engine destroyed. Visible hydraulic leak. Aircraft is maintaining flight but showing oscillating yaw pattern. Pilot workload appears high. Viper 1 Roger. United 447, be advised you have F-22 escort on your right side." In the 777's cockpit, Jennifer manages a tired smile. "Nice to have company." Sarah looks out the window. She can see the F-22 clearly, its angular shape unmistakable. The pilot is close enough that she can see his helmet. She knows that aircraft intimately. She has flown the F-22 exactly 47 times. She knows every switch, every system, every limitation. She helped write portions of the manual. An idea forms in her mind. "Captain," she says to Mike, "can you patch me through to that F-22? Mike looks at her curiously. "Why?" "Because I think he can help us. But I need to talk to him directly." Mike hesitates for just a moment. Then he switches the radio to the military frequency. "Viper 1 United 447. I have a passenger who requests to speak with you. She is military and she says it's important." In his cockpit, David frowns. This is unusual. But the situation is already unusual. 447, go ahead. Sarah takes the microphone. She takes a breath. She is about to reveal her identity, something she never does casually. "Viper 1, this is Captain Sarah Chin, United States Air Force, test pilot out of Edwards. My call sign is Phoenix. Authentication code Tango 79er Echo Delta. I am a civilian passenger on this flight, but I have taken an advisory role in the cockpit due to emergency circumstances." In the F-22, David's eyes go wide. He knows that name. Every tactical fighter pilot knows that name. Phoenix. The pilot who recovered the impossible spin. The pilot who flies aircraft that do not exist. "Phoenix, Viper 1, he says, his voice suddenly formal, respectful. Authentication confirmed. How can we assist? "Viper 1, we are using an alternative flight control method to maintain stability with degraded hydraulics. The technique requires precise thrust modulation, and pilot fatigue is going to become a factor. I need you to do something for me." "Name it." "Contact Edwards. Talk to Colonel Peterson in the X-37 program office. Tell him Phoenix is requesting emergency authorization for tactical escort and verbal guidance. He'll understand." David is already switching frequencies. "Hickam Command, Viper 1, priority request, patch me through to Edwards Air Force Base, X-37 program office, Colonel Peterson." The connection takes 2 minutes. When Colonel Peterson's voice comes through, David delivers Sarah's message word for word. There is silence for 10 seconds. Then Peterson says, "Authorization granted. Tell Phoenix we're sending the flight profile data to her phone right now. Encryption key is her birthday plus her service number. And tell her we're proud of her." David switches back to the United frequency. "Phoenix, Viper 1. You are authorized. Data incoming. Colonel Peterson sends his regards." Sarah feels her phone buzz. She opens the encrypted message. It contains charts, graphs, numbers, everything she needs to refine the technique she has been using. But more than that, it contains new information. Advanced methods. Classified methods. She studies the data for 3 minutes while Jennifer continues the thrust modulation. Okay, Sarah says. I have an updated profile. This is going to get us stable enough to drink coffee. She talks Jennifer through the new technique. It is more complex, requiring coordination between thrust, rudder, and aileron inputs. But it works even better than before. The oscillations smooth out. The aircraft feels almost normal. Mike lets out a breath he did not know he was holding. Incredible. They fly in wide circles 100 miles from Honolulu. The sun moves across the sky. Inside the cabin, flight attendants keep passengers calm, serve drinks, answer questions. People know something is wrong, but they do not know how wrong. Sarah rotates with Jennifer and Mike on the thrust controls. Each person takes 30-minute shifts. It is exhausting work, requiring absolute concentration. But it works. The F-22s maintain their escort position. Viper 1 stays close. Viper 2 remains high, watching the airspace, making sure no other aircraft come near. David Martinez watches the 777 with growing respect. The pilots are maintaining control of an aircraft that should be unflyable. And it is all because of Phoenix. Viper 2, he says to his wingman. You know who Phoenix is? Negative. She's a legend. She's forgotten more about flying than most pilots will ever know. And she's on that airliner right now, saving 200 people with techniques that probably won't be declassified for 10 years. That's impressive. That's Phoenix. Inside the 777, Sarah takes another shift on the thrust controls. Her arms ache. Her shoulders burn. But her hands stay steady. She thinks about all the training, all the test flights, all the hours in simulators and classrooms. Everything she has learned has prepared her for this moment. An hour passes. 2 hours. The fuel gauges drop steadily. The aircraft becomes lighter, more responsive. Mike monitors their weight. We're at 220,000 pounds, he announces. Another hour and we'll be light enough. How are the hydraulics holding? Sarah asks. System 2 is stable. Temperature is high but within limits. And the passengers? A flight attendant appears in the cockpit doorway. Her name is Rachel and she has been flying for 15 years. They're nervous but calm, she reports. Some people know about the fighter jets. It's actually helping, makes them feel safer. Good, Mike says. Tell them we'll be landing in about 90 minutes. Tell them we have everything under control. Rachel nods and leaves. Sarah looks at Jennifer. How are you holding up? Jennifer manages a smile. I've never been so tired in my life. But I'm okay. We're going to make it, right? Yes, Sarah says with absolute certainty. We're going to make it. 3 hours after the engine explosion, United Flight 447 is finally ready to land. The aircraft weighs 190,000 pounds, still heavy but manageable. The fuel load is down to minimum reserves. Honolulu International Airport has cleared all other traffic. Fire trucks line the runway. Ambulances stand ready. The control tower is crowded with people watching. Mike flies the approach. Sarah sits in the jump seat behind him, ready to take over if needed. Jennifer monitors the systems, calling out altitude and speed. The F-22s fly beside them, one on each wing. David Martinez has been with them for 3 hours. He feels like he knows these people now. 447 Viper 1, he says. We're with you all the way down. You've got this. Thanks, Viper, Mike responds. Appreciate the company. Sarah watches the instruments carefully. The approach must be perfect. They have no margin for error. With degraded hydraulics and only one engine, they will get exactly one chance to land. 10 miles, Jennifer calls. Speed 200 knots. On glide slope. Mike's hands are steady on the yoke. He has been flying for 26 years. He has landed in storms, in crosswinds, on short runways, in fog. But he has never landed like this. Sarah sees his hands tightening. Captain, she says softly. Relax your grip. Trust the aircraft. It's doing what you're telling it to do. Mike consciously loosens his hands. The aircraft responds better. 5 miles. Speed 180 knots. On glide slope. The runway appears ahead, a long strip of concrete surrounded by emergency vehicles with flashing lights. 3 miles. Speed 160. On glide slope. Sarah leans forward. At 1 mile, I want you to reduce thrust to 70%. Let the aircraft settle. When you have the runway made, throttle to idle and flare normally. Got it? 1 mile. Speed 150. On glide slope. Mike reduces thrust. The aircraft sinks slightly. He adds a touch of back pressure on the yoke. The nose comes up. Half mile. Speed 140. The runway fills the windscreen. Mike can see individual lights, markings on the concrete. Runway made, Jennifer calls. Mike pulls the thrust lever to idle. The aircraft drops toward the runway. He pulls back on the yoke, flaring, raising the nose. The main landing gear touches concrete with a firm but controlled impact. The aircraft bounces slightly, settles again. Mike deploys the speed brakes and begins braking carefully, using only the left engine's reverse thrust. The aircraft slows. 100 knots. 80 knots. 60 knots. It stops 2,000 feet down the runway. Inside the cabin, people applaud. Some cry. Some sit in stunned silence. In the cockpit, Mike and Jennifer look at each other. They cannot quite believe it. Sarah allows herself a small smile. Nice landing, Captain. Mike laughs, a sound of pure relief. Couldn't have done it without you. The F-22s roar overhead, performing a victory roll before turning back toward Hickam. Viper 1 to Phoenix, David says over the radio. That was beautiful. Honor flying with you. Honor was mine, Viper, Sarah responds. The next 6 hours are a blur of activity. Paramedics check every passenger, but miraculously no one is seriously hurt. A few people have minor bruises from turbulence, nothing more. The FAA arrives. The NTSB arrives. Military investigators arrive. Sarah spends hours giving statements, explaining the technique she used, answering technical questions. The media finds out who she is. The story spreads. Legendary test pilot saves 200 passengers using classified techniques. Sarah wants to avoid the cameras, but the Air Force Public Affairs Office insists she do one interview. She sits in front of reporters, still wearing her civilian clothes, looking tired. Captain Chin, people are calling you a hero, a reporter says. How do you feel about that? I'm not a hero, Sarah says. I'm a pilot who happened to have specific training that was useful in a specific situation. The real heroes are Captain Brennan and First Officer Park, who maintained control of that aircraft under impossible conditions for 3 hours. I just provided guidance. But you used classified techniques. I used techniques that I was authorized to use in an emergency. Colonel Peterson at Edwards approved it. I followed proper protocols. Will these techniques be taught to commercial pilots now? Sarah pauses. That's a good question. I hope so. What happened today showed that there are methods for recovering aircraft in situations we previously thought unrecoverable. I think every pilot should have access to this knowledge. Another reporter asks, what was going through your mind during the crisis? Honestly, I was focused on the problem. I was calculating numbers, monitoring systems, watching the pilot's technique. I didn't have time to be scared. That came later. And the F-22 pilots? The escort? Sarah smiles. They were professional and supportive. Major Martinez and his wingman stayed with us for 3 hours. Knowing they were there helped. It reminded me that I wasn't alone. The investigation concludes that a manufacturing defect caused the engine failure. Boeing issues a service bulletin. Airlines worldwide inspect their fleets. Captain Mike Brennan and First Officer Jennifer Park receive the Airline Pilots Association Superior Airmanship Award. They accept it humbly. Sarah Chin receives the Distinguished Flying Cross, her third. The citation is partially classified. The ceremony takes place at Edwards Air Force Base. Colonel Peterson pins the medal to her uniform. You make us proud, he tells her. Just doing my job, sir? No, Peterson says. You did much more than that. You showed us that our research, our training, our dedication to pushing boundaries, it all matters. It all means something. Those 200 people are alive because of work you did years ago in a simulator. But the most important change happens quietly. The FAA establishes a new training program. Commercial pilots begin learning advanced recovery techniques, adapted from military test pilot protocols. The program is called Phoenix Training. Sarah helps develop the curriculum. She teaches the first class herself. 25 pilots from major airlines sit in the classroom, taking notes as she explains differential thrust modulation and aerodynamic pressure management. This is not easy, she tells them. This requires practice, concentration, and trust in physics. But it works. I've proven it works. And someday one of you might need to use it. The pilots listen intently. They understand they are learning something valuable, something that could save lives. After class, a young pilot approaches Sarah. His name is Marcus and he flies for Delta. Captain Chin, he says. Thank you for this. My daughter is 4 years old. If something happens to my aircraft someday, I want to have every possible tool to get home to her. You're giving us that. Sarah shakes his hand. Stay safe up there. You too, ma'am. United Flight 447 story becomes a case study at aviation schools worldwide. The cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder are analyzed extensively. The technique Sarah used is now officially documented, no longer classified. Mike Brennan retires after 30 years of flying. His final flight receives a water cannon salute. Jennifer Park is promoted to captain and becomes an instructor pilot herself. Major David Martinez stays in touch with Sarah. They meet for coffee when their schedules align. They talk about flying, about aircraft, about the thin line between success and disaster. I think about that day a lot, David tells her. The way you stayed calm, the way you just knew what to do. Where does that come from? Sarah considers the question. Experience, training. But also trust. Trust in physics, trust in machines, trust in yourself. I knew the technique would work because I understood the principles behind it. I tested it. I'd proven it. Do you ever get scared? Every time I fly, Sarah admits. Fear keeps you sharp. The trick is not letting it control you. Sarah continues test flying. She pushes new aircraft to their limits and brings them back safely. She adds more pages to her file, more commendations, more achievements. But she is most proud of United Flight 447. Not because of the recognition, not because of the medals, but because of a simple number, 200. 200 people went home that day. 200 people who should have died but did not. 200 lives that continued because she happened to be in seat 24C, because she knew something others did not, because she made the choice to act. She keeps a photograph in her office at Edwards. It shows the 777 on the runway in Honolulu, surrounded by emergency vehicles. Looking at it, she remembers the weight of the thrust lever in her hand, the sound of the engine, the feel of the aircraft responding to her inputs. She remembers being Phoenix. 3 years after United Flight 447, Sarah Chin receives a promotion to lieutenant colonel. She is assigned to lead the Advanced Flight Controls Research Program at Edwards. The work is still classified, still dangerous, still pushing the boundaries of what aircraft can do. She is also invited to speak at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. The invitation comes from the museum director personally. They are creating a new exhibit about aviation safety innovations, and they want her to be part of the opening ceremony. Sarah stands in the museum looking at aircraft that changed history. The Wright Flyer. The Spirit of St. Louis. The X-1. These machines represent courage, innovation, and the human drive to push beyond limits. A young girl approaches her, maybe 10 years old, holding a notebook. "Excuse me," the girl says. "Are you Captain Chin? Phoenix?" "I am. I read about you in school. You saved all those people on the airplane." "I helped," Sarah says. "There were many people involved. But you knew what to do. You were brave." Sarah kneels down to the girl's level. "Can I tell you a secret?" The girl nods. "I was scared too. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done even when you're scared." "I want to be a pilot," the girl says. Sarah smiles. "Then study hard. Learn physics and math. Stay curious. Ask questions. And remember that every great pilot was once exactly where you are now, just starting to dream." The girl thanks her and runs back to her parents. Sarah watches her go, wondering if she is looking at the next generation of pioneers, the next person who will push boundaries and save lives. Later that evening, Sarah sits in her hotel room and opens her laptop. She has a report to write about test flights from last week. But first she checks her email. There is a message from Jennifer Park. The subject line says, "Thank you again." Sarah opens it. The email is short. "I just got certified as an instructor pilot. I'm going to teach the Phoenix techniques to every pilot I train. You changed my life that day. You changed all our lives. Thank you for everything. Jennifer." Sarah reads the email twice. Then she closes her laptop and looks out the window at the lights of Washington, D.C. She thinks about the path that brought her here, years of training, thousands of hours in the air, countless moments of doubt and triumph. She thinks about the call sign they gave her, Phoenix. The mythical bird that rises from ashes, that survives when survival seems impossible. She understands now that the call sign is not just about that one moment when she recovered the F-35 from an impossible spin. It is about every moment since. Every time she climbs into a cockpit. Every time she faces the impossible and finds a way through. It is about rising. Again and again. No matter what. Sarah Chin closes her eyes and allows herself a moment of peace. Tomorrow she will return to Edwards. She will climb into another experimental aircraft. She will push more boundaries. She will test more limits. But tonight, she simply exists in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that somewhere out there, 200 people are living their lives, going to work, spending time with families, chasing their own dreams, because she was on Flight 447. Because she knew what to do. Because she was Phoenix. And that, she thinks, is enough. That is more than enough.